In this video, I'm covering some practice questions from the Algebra 1 and, of course, practice assessment. I'm using the Florida Virtual Schools Algebra 1 practice test. The test is actually 60 questions, but part 1, I'm covering questions 1 through 20, and numbers 21 through 60 will be covered in parts 2 and 3. So let's get started. For question 1, it says Anton joined a golf club 2 years ago. He pays an annual membership fee of $895 and a greens fee of $30. Each time he plays a game of golf, the function below can be used to calculate the total yearly golfing fee in dollars. And the function is f of g equals 895 plus 30g, where g represents the number of times he played golf during the year. Last year he paid $2,065 as a total golfing fee. For how many games did he pay a greens fee? So G stands for the amount of games that he played, and f of g up here says calculate the total yearly golfing fee, f of g in dollars. So f of g is the golfing fee. He paid a total of $2,065. So since this represents f of g, I'm actually going to plug in 2,065 for f of g. So I'm replacing that. So 2,065 equals 895 plus 30g, because that is the golfing fee that he paid. And then I just solve for g. Two-step equation, subtract 895, and I get 1,170. I'm left with 30g. Inverse operation tells me to divide both sides by 30, since this 30 is being multiplied. And 1,170 divided by 30, since I'm running out of space, I'm going to write it over here. That is 39. So G is equal to 39, which is the amount of games. And so he played 39 games. All right. He paid for 39 games. All right, so let's take a look at number 2. It says for the function f of x is equal to 3x plus 2, find x such that f of x is equal to 14. And so since this says f of x is equal to 14, I'm replacing 14 with f of x. So instead of putting f of x, I'm writing 14 is equal to 3x plus 2. And so with these type of problems, if it would have said x is equal to 14, then I would have plugged in 14 for x. But since it said f of x equals 14, I plug it in for f of x. And then we just have this basic two-step equation. Subtract 2, 12 is equal to 3x, divide by 3, 12 divided by 3 is 4, ran out of space again, so x is equal to 4. So I have solved the first two problems here. Number 3 says find the domain of the function represented by the graph. And remember, the domain is a set of x or your input values to satisfy the function. So since we're given a graph here, remember our x is horizontal. And so I'm going to actually draw a line here. So this graph goes from -5 to, so I'm looking at my x-axis, to 3. So my domain is A, consists of input values from -5 to 3. Or if you just want to look at the ordered pairs and look at the x value from that, you could do that. So this ordered pair is -5, -4. And this ordered pair is 3, 6. And again, you would just look at the x value, 3 and -5. So you get the same thing. You either look at your ordered pairs, or you can draw your lines to see where that graph starts and stops on your x-axis. Let's take a look at number 4. It says Gregory teaches martial arts. He charges a one-time processing fee of $5, and the cost of the classes is shown below. Let X represent the number of classes and Y represent the cost of the classes. Based on this information, what will it cost to take 10 classes? And we have a note here. It says cost of classes, not including the processing fee. The processing fee was $5, so let's make a note of that. And if we look at this chart here, number of classes 1 through 4, cost of the first class is 15, second class is 27, 3 classes 39, and 4 classes is 51. I'm noticing a pattern here. My pattern is I'm adding 12 each time, but I can only say that because my X values are going by ones. So what I'm going to do just to make sure is to find the slope. So remember, slope formula, y2 minus y1, x sub 2 minus x1. And I'm going to use the first two ordered pairs here. All right, so this would be an ordered pair because I have x and a y, and then the second one would be an ordered pair. So I need an x and a y for every ordered pair. So I'm going to label the first ordered pair as x1, y1, second ordered pair as x2, y2. A little messy. So I'm plugging it in. y2 minus y sub 1, 27 minus 15. I'm leaving off the zeros for the sake of space. And then x2 minus x1, that is 2 minus 1. And I'm left with 12 over 1. So my slope is 12. So I could say that each class costs $12. So if I'm at 4 classes and it costs $12 per class, right? And I want to know the cost of 10 classes, I could just add 12 6 more times, right? Or I could just multiply 6 times 12, and that is 72. So the cost of 10 classes is $72 without that processing fee, right? Because this stands for without, that W/O. So without the processing fee. And I know that it is without the processing fee because it says does not include the processing fee. So in addition to $51, I'm going to add $12 to this $72 to this $51. So 51 plus 72 is 123. Let me make sure. All right. So that is $123 for 10 classes, but let's add in that processing fee of $5. And the cost is $128, and that gives us C. And there we go. Let's take a look at number 5, and we want to solve this equation. So now remember, with any multi-step equation, the first thing you look for is parentheses. And if you see parentheses, if it has like terms inside, you go ahead and combine those. In this case, we do not. X plus 10 and x minus 2, there are no like terms there. Next, I want to use the distributive property to get rid of the parentheses. So remember, with the distributive property, you're multiplying everything from your outside terms to your inside terms. So negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Negative 4 times 10 is negative 40. So remember, minus and negative is the same thing. So since negative 4 times 10 is negative 40, I can put a minus 40. And I bring down that minus 6 because I haven't used it yet. And then the distributive property on your right-hand side, negative 3 times x, negative 3x, negative 3 times negative 2, say plus 6. Again, I'm looking at that 2 as a negative because it has a minus in front. So look at minus and negative as the same thing. That way you don't have to deal with like double signs, like plus, negative. All right. Now you look to see if you have like terms on the same side, and I do right here. Negative 40 minus 6. And I'm going to just combine those. So that's negative 4x minus 46. And when you have like terms on the same side, combine them by using the signs that you're given. So I combine negative 40 minus 6. That is the same as negative 40 plus negative 6. I still get negative 46. Now, I still have like terms, but I need to move them across the equal sign. I could, and I like to combine the variables first, I could add 3x to both sides. I'm going to get the same answer since that's a minus 3x. But what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to add 4x to both sides. And that is because when I add it to the negative 3x, I'm going to get a positive x. All right, so cancels out. Negative 46. Negative 3x plus 4x is just x. And I bring down a plus 6. And so I did that because I always try to stay away from negatives. It's just easier to make mistakes when you have more negatives. So like I said, I could have added 3x. I would have gotten a negative x on the left hand side, but try to stay away from negatives or avoid negatives, and it leaves you less room for error. So now I'm just left with a one-step equation. So this is a plus 6. I'm going to subtract 6. And I've gotten the x by itself. So negative 46 minus 6 is negative 52. So I have solved this equation for x, and I get negative 52. Number 6 says a bookstore sold 18,000 paperbacks 1 month. This was 10% less than the number of paperbacks the store sold the previous month. The following equation represents this situation where x represents the number of paperbacks sold the previous month. So this is previous months. This is what this represents here. This says previous. And it asks us how many paperbacks did the store sell in both the months. So first, before we figure out how many paperbacks were sold in both months, we need to figure out how many were sold the previous month. Okay, so I'm just going to solve this equation here for x. So I'm going to rewrite it, x minus 0.1. And I'm solving this because this is going to tell me how many paperbacks were sold the previous month. So combining my like terms, x minus 0.1x. Remember, if you don't see a number in front of the variable, it's an understood 1. So 1 minus 0.1 is 0.9x. And I bring down my 18,000. I'm left with the one-step equation, 0.9 times x. I'm going to divide both sides by 0.9 or 0.9. So it's just a one-step equation. You could have decimals, but it's the same process. You use inverse operations. Now I have 18,000 divided by 0.9. That leaves me with 20,000. So this is 20,000 books sold the previous month. And it says, if I go back to my question, it says how many paperbacks did the store sell in both of the months. So that first month or that other month was 18,000, and I have 20,000. So I'm just going to add their total combined amount of books. So 20,000 plus 18,000, that gives me 38,000 books. And there we go. So if you notice, this was a tricky question. If you look at answer A says 20,000. So a tip, I'm not saying that A cannot be the answer, but if you get an answer and it is A, go back and double check, because quite a few times answer A will be an answer that you would have gotten if you made a mistake, or if you didn't finish, or you didn't pay attention to the entire question. So since it said both months, we had to add the 18,000. So again, if your answer is A, just double check to make sure that you've answered the entire question. Let's take a look at number 7. It says shades are us charges $20 per day to rent a lounge chair and $15 per day to rent an umbrella. All right. Dan and Lisa paid a total of $245 to rent a lounge chair and umbrella each during their vacation. Lisa rented the chair and umbrella for 1 day less than Dan. The following equation represents the situation where X represents the number of days Dan rented the lounge chair and umbrella. What is the total amount Dan paid to rent the lounge chair and umbrella during his vacation? And so the first thing we want to do, we want to find X. Because if we find X, that's going to determine the number of days that Dan rented the lounge chair. So let's see how many days he rented. So I'm actually going to do the distributive property, and I'm going to write it underneath my sentence here. So I'm going to bring down the 20x plus 15x, just bringing down everything. And the distributive property, so 20 times x, that gives me 20x. 20 times -1, that is -20, plus 15 times x, that's 15x. 15 times -1, -15, that all equals $245. So I'm solving this equation to see how many days Dan rented the lounge chair and the umbrella. So just solving this, combining my like terms, 20x plus 15x, that is 35x. 35 plus 20, that is 55x. And 55 plus 15, that is 70x. So combining my like terms, I get 70x. Next, my other like terms, -20 minus 15, that is -35. Let me put the same color. -30, not 20, -35, not x, equals 245. All right, so combine my x values and then my constants. So now I'm just left with this two-step equation, adding 35, 70x is equal to 245 plus 35, that is 280, and dividing by 70, x is 4. So Dan rented the umbrella and chairs for 4 days. And so now it says, what is the total amount Dan paid to rent the lounge chair and umbrella during his vacation? So how much did the lounge chairs cost? If we go back to our original equation, $20 per day to rent the lounge chair. So I can do 20 times 4 because it's 4 days. And then $15 per day to rent the umbrella. So I'm adding $15 per day, which was 4 days. So he rented these items for 4 days, $20 for the lounge chair and $15 for the umbrellas. Then I just solved this. So that would be 80 plus 15 times 4, that is 60. And that leaves me with 140. So he spent a total of $140 to rent his lounge chair and his umbrellas on vacation. Number 8 asks, which property would be used first to simplify the expression 2 times x plus 5y plus 1 minus 4 times 3x minus y minus 2. So we've solved a few equations already, and I've told you that if you see parentheses, you always get rid of them by using what property. Remember, we multiply everything through, right, to get rid of the parentheses, and of course that would be the distributive property. All right, now let's look at number 9. It says your daily workout plan involves a total of 40 minutes of running and swimming. You burn 20 calories per minute running, and you burn 10 calories per minute swimming. Let R be the number of minutes you run. how many calories will you burn in your 40-minute workout if you run for 20 minutes? So now I could set up an equation to solve this, right? But what I find that with most students, they like to use some reasoning skills here. So I'm actually going to use my reasoning skills instead of setting up an equation for this particular problem here. So you burn 20 calories per minute running. So if you run for 20 minutes, right? How many calories are you going to burn in 20 minutes? So 20 calories a minute in 20 minutes. So running, so 20 calories for 20 minutes. So 20 cal times 20 minutes. I could just multiply that and I get 400. Because if you burn 20 calories each minute and you run 20 minutes, you burn 400 calories in 20 minutes. So 400 calories running. Now with swimming, all right, so let's see how many calories you burn swimming. So if you do a 40-minute workout and you run for 20 minutes, how many minutes do you have left? You have 20 minutes left for your swimming, right? How many calories do you burn each minute swimming? As mentioned here, 10 calories per minute swimming, right? So 10 calories swimming per minute. And again, that is going to be at 20 minutes because we've already used 20 minutes from running. So in our 40-minute workout, we got another 20 minutes left that we could swim. And so if you burn 10 calories a minute for 20 minutes, 10 times 20 is 200. And that gives me a total of, this is calories, 600. So I burned 600 calories in my 40-minute workout. Let's take a look at number 10. It says, which mathematical sentence represents the solution for D in the equation 6E equals EF plus 3D? Now, we notice here that we have several letters, and we want to solve for just one of those letters or one of those variables. So anytime you're given an equation with several letters and you just want to solve for one of them, you know that your answer will be another equation. And so your goal is to isolate the D, get it by itself on one side. And you still use inverse operations, except you can only combine if it's like terms. So we use the same process. So we want to solve for D, right? And if you had a two-step equation, right? So let's say, I'm just going to make up something. If I have 2 equals 4 plus 3D, right? And you were solving for D. What would be your first step? Well, in order to solve that one-step equation or two-step equation, you would subtract 4. So you would get rid of what is not attached to the variable you solve for. So you always add or subtract first. We're going to do the same thing with the EF. We're subtracting EF. Cancels out. 6E minus EF, those are not like terms because I have an F here, right? So I cannot combine them, so I just leave them separate. 6E minus EF. And again, I leave them separate because they are not like terms. In order for it to be like terms, you have to have the same variable with the same exponent. Now, I bring down the 3D because I've gotten rid of the EF. So here, if I do, I'm at the bottom, 2 minus 4, I get negative 2, right? And I bring down the 3D. If I wanted to solve for D, inverse operations, I would divide both sides by 3. And my answer at the bottom, that the problem I made up, will be negative 2/3. So I'm going to do the same process. Since I want to get the D by itself, that's 3 times D, I want to divide both sides by 3. 3's cancel out. And I can't do anything else. I don't have any other like terms. If I did have an E, I could divide both by E, but I do not. I have a 3 at the bottom, so I would just leave this. And so let's see which one matches. D equals, so 6E minus EF equals 3, and that would be A. I've solved this literal equation. Number 11, we have another literal equation here. So it says the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle with length, which is L, and width W is P equals 2L plus W. Which of the following is a formula for the length of a rectangle in terms of perimeter and width? So a lot of words here, right? But it says, what is the formula for the length? Which letter is represented by the length? L. So basically this equation is just telling us, or this problem is just asking us to solve for L. And you can see down here with your answer choices, but if you did not have answer choices, just look and see what the problem is asking for. It's asking us for the length, and so we're going to solve for L. So I'm going to rewrite P equals 2L plus 2W. And again, same process. Always add or subtract first. So since this 2W is not attached to this L and it is being added, I'm going to subtract 2W. Because my last step should be to divide by whatever number is next to the variable that I'm solving for. So just like with any other two-step equation, add or subtract first, then multiply or divide. So right-hand side crosses out. I'm left with P minus 2W. And again, I cannot combine these because they are not like terms. I have different variables. If I had the same variable, I would combine them, but I do not. So I leave it separate. And I bring down this 2L. We want to solve for L, so 2 times L. We divide both sides by 2. Left with L on my right-hand side. Although I have a 2 here, I could divide that 2 with the 2W, but the P does not have a 2. So I'm going to leave it. All right. And that answer choice that matches is, let's see, C. Let's see, that is C. So that's my answer for number 11. Let's look at number 12. It says, which of the following is a solution for 4x minus 4 is greater than 12? So you solve inequalities the same way you solve an equation. The only difference is that if you're multiplying or dividing both sides by a negative, you flip your inequality symbol. So if we're looking at number 12, we're going to end up dividing by positive 4, so no need to switch the sign. So I'm going to look at this like a two-step equation. Add 4. I'm left with 4x is greater than 12 plus 4. That is 16. Divide 3 by 4. X is greater than 4. Let's see which one matches, and that is C. So both answers here were C. Number 13 says, which graph represents the solution set for the compound inequality mentioned here? And so I like to tell my students, if we have a compound inequality, if we just cover up one side, let's scribble it out, and you just left with this two-step inequality, what would you do to solve this? You would then subtract 1 because that's a positive 1 from both sides, and then you would divide by negative 2. So you're going to do the same process, except you're going to do that on both sides and in the middle. So my first step, I want to get rid of this 1, so I subtract it from the middle and from both sides. Negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. Bring down that less than or equal to. Cancels out that 1. I'm left with negative 2x in the middle. And 11 minus 1 is 10. Now, I want to isolate the x in the middle. So I want to divide everything by negative 2 because that negative 2 is being multiplied. So I'm dividing everything by negative 2. Now remember, with inequalities, if you're dividing or multiplying both sides by a negative number, that sign is going to flip. So negative 4 divided by 2 is positive 2, but instead of putting less than or equal to, I'm going to put greater than or equal to. So if you notice, my inequality symbol flipped. All right, it went from less than to greater than. That is because I'm dividing by a negative 2. All right. And next, I'm left with x in the middle. Again, since I divided by negative 2, that sign changes from less than to greater than. And that leaves me with -5. So this is my answer. This is telling me that x is less than or equal to 2, but greater than -5. So since I have that equal to sign underneath, this is going to be a closed circle because x is less than or equal to 2. This sign tells me that this would be an open circle because I don't have that line underneath. So I'm looking. So x is going to be in between -5 and 2. So that is going to eliminate D, and it's going to eliminate B. So from -5 and 2, I have A and C left. Now if I notice over here, I have this equal to sign underneath the 2. So it includes that 2, and it does not include the 5. And so my answer would be A, because I'm going to have an open circle over the -5 because it did not include the -5. So make sure you're really paying attention to your signs. As you can see, all these answers are very similar. It only takes one negative sign to kind of throw your problem off. So just make sure that you're really paying attention to your signs. Remember, with inequalities, if you're dividing by a negative number, that sign is going to flip. Number 14 says, Trini's car breaks down on a highway. Trini estimates that she is 20 to 30 miles from the nearest car repair shop. She calls a towing company that charges $80 plus $3 per mile to tow a car. If Trini uses this towing company, which is the best estimate for the amount of money she will pay for the company to tow her car? So, if this company charges $80 base price, in addition to that, it's $3 per mile. I'm going to use M for mile as well. I know in the equation it said amount of money, but so we can say that this is $3 per mile. And she estimates that she's going to pay, that she's between 20 and 30 miles from the repair. So I'm going to take this expression and plug in 20. Then I'm going to take this expression and plug in 30 as well. So 80 plus 3 times, so the amount of miles would be 20, her first estimate. So that is 80 plus 60, that is 140. So on the low end, she would spend $140, and then at 30 miles, so I'm plugging in 3 for 30. I'm sorry, 30 for the miles now. That is 80 plus 90. That is 170. So at 20 miles, she would spend $140. At 30 miles, she would spend 170. And so the range would be C. So the amount of money, so I kind of use M for both. She would pay greater than or equal to $140 or less than or equal to $170. Number 15 says Mia is a sales associate at an art gallery. She earns $300 plus 4% commission of all her sales. This week she earns $327. How much were Mia's art sales this week? So we can actually set up an equation to find this. I'm going to let X equal the number of dollars that she sold, because the question asks how much were Mia's art sales. So how much money or dollars did she sell worth of art? So, but now when you set up or write an equation and you have a percent, you can't just plug in 4, because then that 4 would be like a whole 4. So 4% is actually, we need to change that to a decimal. So remember, with a percent or any number, you have an understood decimal behind it. So to change a whole number to a decimal, you're going to move or percent to a decimal, I should say. You're going to move that decimal to the left 2 places. So 4% is 0.04% or 0.04 as a decimal. So when I set up my equation, I'm going to put 0.04. I've just changed that percent to a decimal. And we don't know how much money or how many dollars she sold, so but we know she made 4% of that, so 0.04 times X, which is the amount that she sold, which is what we're looking for. But in addition to that, she earns $300 anyway without selling anything, but so that is plus that 4%. And she earned $327 this week. So her 4% of her sales plus the $300 base that she gets paid, this is the equation that is represented. So we just solved this for X to see how many dollars that she sold worth of art. So that's 0.04. I'm left with 27. I forgot my X here. So I need to divide both sides by 0.04. All right, messing up a little bit here. All right, so I'm left with X is equal to 27 divided by 0.04, and that is 675. So her sales was $675 worth of art. All right, so now let's take a look at number 16 and 17. We're looking at standard and slope-intercept form. So number 16 says, which of the following represents the linear equation 3x minus 12 minus 2y in standard form? If you remember, standard form is ax plus by equals c. C is your constant. And so 12 in this case would be our constant, or the number that is by itself. And so we just want to move that negative 2y over. So I'm rewriting this. All right. Since that's a minus 2y, I'm just adding 2y to both sides. We cannot combine 3x and 2y because they are not like terms. So I just leave it as 3x plus 2y. That equals 12. And so I have put it in standard form. That is D. And if you know what standard form is, you could have automatically eliminated A and B because those are in slope-intercept. Let's look at number 17. It says, which of the following represents the linear equation 2x equals y plus 3 in slope-intercept? Remember, slope-intercept is y equals mx plus b. So basically, the equation should be solved for y, and your x value, or the term with your x should be first. And then this is your y-intercept, so that is your constant. So basically, if you're asked to write a problem in slope-intercept form, just solve for y. Okay, and the term with the x should be first. So I'm going to solve for y equals y plus 3. I'm subtracting 3 because I want to solve for y. I'm left with 2x minus 3. Again, can't combine it because it's not a like term. And so I could rewrite this as y equals 2x minus 3. Same thing. And that is actually C. So slope-intercept, just solve for y. Number 18 says the travel path of a ferry heading from a mainland harbor toward an island jetty is graphed on a coordinate grid. The graph is a straight line with a slope of negative 1/4. The mainland harbor is located at point 2,1. Which graph represents the travel path of the ferry? So basically, we want to find the line that has a slope of negative 1/4 that goes through the point 2,1. So let's start off by using the process of elimination. So we have a negative slope, right? So a negative slope falls from left to right, because remember, we read from left to right, so we want to look for the line that falls from left to right. So we can eliminate A because that line goes up from left to right. And we could also, well, that's the only one we can eliminate. So now we want to see which one goes through the point 2,1, and then see if we can find the slope there. So this one, so let's look at B. Does B go through the point 2,1? No, 2,1 is here. Cancel out B. C goes through the point 2,1 right here, so C is still in the running. And if we look at D, does D go through the point 2, 1? Yes, it does. So now we've narrowed it down to C and D. So now we just have to check to see which one has a slope of negative 1/4. So remember, to find the slope, you're just going to pick 2 points that cross the grid at the line there, or actually on your boxes. So I'm going to actually pick the point 2, 1, and let's see, we have to look for a point on where the graphs intersect right here. So I'm going to go down 1. I'm just finding the slope of the line, and I go over 1, 2, 3, 4. That slope is negative 1/4. So my answer is C, but just to show you that the slope down here is not negative 1/4. If I pick this point here, I'm going down 1, 2, 3, 4. My rise is actually negative 4, and I go over 1 place. So that slope here is negative 4. So that should have been a positive 1. So my answer is C. Number 19, almost done with part 1. So number 19, it says, for a science experiment, Corinne is adding hydrochloric acid to distilled water. The relationship between the amount of hydrochloric acid X and the amount of distilled water Y is graphed below. Which inequality best represents this graph? All right, so the first thing we need to do is look at the slope of this graph and see. So let's first look at the slope of the graph, or find it. So I'm going to pick 2 points. They have to be where the lines intersect the actual grid, and so right here. So the slope, rise over run, I go up 1, 2. So since this graph is going by 2's, that rise is 4, and I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3. So again, this graph is going by 2's, so that would be 6. So my slope is 4, 6. That reduces to 2/3. And remember, when you're finding your slope, it always has to be 2 points that are on the actual grid intersections. And so now, since this is an inequality, the shading is above the line. So since the shading is above the line, my value, if the equation were written as slope-intercept, that would be greater than, right, or greater than or equal to, but in this case, since it's dotted, it's greater than, because greater than equals above the line. I'm spelling above wrong. Above the line. So what else do we need? I think we got what we need for now. So which inequality best represents the graph? So I need to write these equations in slope-intercept form. But first, since this is a positive slope, I know that the graph goes up from left to right. So when I start writing, I know that I need to get a positive slope. So if I solve the first one for y, again, when you rewrite in slope-intercept form, you're just solving for y. So if I solve a, the first one, I'm going to add 3x. So that is 2y is greater than 0 plus 3x is just 3x. So I added 3x. I still have a positive slope, but then I divide by 2. X, so y is greater than 3 over 2. That is not my slope. My slope is 2/3. So cancel that out, or erase that for the sake of space. The second one, 3y is less than 2x. I'm just rewriting B. So add 2x, 3y, I don't need the 0. So I divide by 3. Y is less than 2/3 x. So this is less than, right? So that does not match, although I have the correct slope. This is less than. I need greater than because this is shaded above the line. All right, so the C, again, just solving for y. 2y minus 3x is greater than 0. Adding 3x. 2y is greater than 3x. Dividing by 2. And again, slope is 3 over 2. I need 2/3. So that is incorrect. So it has to be C, but I'm just going to make sure. because I could have solved one of my equations incorrectly, so I'm not just going to assume that it is D. So I'm rewriting D up here. 3y minus 2x is greater than 0. Adding 2x. 3y is equal to 2, not equal. Less than, let me, greater than 2x divided by 3. So that one works. Y is greater than 2/3 x. It should be greater than because this graph is shaded above the line and the slope is 2/3. So my answer is D, but make sure you don't assume anything. Always solve to make sure, because if D would not have worked, then I would have had to go back and try these problems again because I could have made a mistake. So always go through and work out all of your problems if you have a problem like this. All right, so we have reached the last question for part 1. Number 20, it says, what is the y-coordinate of the y-intercept of the line that passes through the points -4, 4 and 4, 8? So the y-coordinate of the y-intercept, if you think about what is the y-intercept, that is where that graph crosses the y-axis, right? So the y-coordinate of the y-intercept is just the y-intercept because the x is going to be 0. So if you think about the y-intercept, what equation or form comes to mind when you think about y-intercept? Hopefully, slope-intercept comes to mind. Y equals mx plus b, because what does b stand for? B stands for your y-intercept. So if we find b, that would be our answer. And so the two things that you need to write an equation in slope-intercept form are your slope, which is your m, and your y-intercept. So if the information that we're given is two ordered pairs, can we find the slope or the y-intercept with two ordered pairs? Well, we can't find the y-intercept, but we could find the slope. So remember, the slope formula is m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So I'm going to find the slope using these two ordered pairs. Label it x1, y1, x2, y2. Remember, in every ordered pair, you have an x and a y. Plugging it in, y sub 2 minus y sub 1, that is 8 minus -4. I have a minus in my formula, and I also have a -4, so I have a double negative there. Then that is my x2 minus x1. That is going to be 4 minus -4. So again, minus in your formula, and you also have a minus here, so double negative. So that leaves me with, so please watch out for your negatives. If you have a minus in your formula and a negative, that is going to give you a double negative, which would be positive. So 8 minus -4 is really 8 plus 4, so that's 12. 4 minus -4, it's really 4 plus 4, that is 8. So the slope is 3/2. I just reduced it. So I found m. Now how can I find b? Well, I could do this. I could take my slope-intercept form and plug in m, which is the slope, right? And I could take one of my ordered pairs and plug it in for x and y, actually. And since I have an x, y, and an m, and the only letter that I would have left is b, and I could solve for b. So I could pick any one of these ordered pairs. I'm going to pick for 8. It's easier to work with positive numbers, so I'm going to use positive for 8. But again, you could use any number, any ordered pair, but I picked the positive one because it's just easier to work with. So in this ordered pair for 8, my y value is 8. My slope, I'm plugging in for m. I found my slope was 3/2. And the x value from the ordered pair that I chose is 4. And I bring down b. So now I have all numbers here, and I could solve for b. Bring down 8. So 3/2 times 4, that is really 4/1. So I'm over here to the side. I can do 3 times 4, which is 12. 2 times 1 is 2. So that leaves me with 6. But just to show you, sometimes we get a little anxious with fractions. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 1 is 2. 12 over 2 reduces to 6. All right. I bring down b. Now I'm left with a one-step equation. Subtract 6. And b is 2. All right. So my b is the y-intercept. Right? And what did it ask us for? It asked us for the y-intercept. So we have solved this problem, and the answer is 2. All right, we've reached the end of part 1. I want to thank you for reviewing with me. Some related videos are the end of course assessment, practice test questions, parts 2 and 3. That is where I will go over questions 21 through 60 of this practice test, and also the geometry end of course practice assessments are videos as well I have. So if you haven't already, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And once again, I want to thank you for reviewing with me.